Ken Trahan, Lenny Vangilder, SportsNOLA.com for the weekend of the Saints and the Vikings. A quiet college football weekend in these parts. High school football is done. Of course, our coverage of prep sports continues year-round at SportsNOLA.com, where you make us the number one audience on our website because of our coverage of prep statewide. Of course, our Saints coverage is extraordinary, and it is enormous in terms of your following. And the Saints are making it even more enormous by the way they're playing as they continue to win games. 5 straight. Now it's on to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. It's cold outside, but it's indoors, so that's good, providing the roof doesn't collapse.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be in the 20s, I think, on Sunday in Minneapolis, which is probably warm this time of year. But thankfully it will be indoors. The rest of the regular season will be indoors. The question now is, what can the Saints do to be able to play as much of the playoffs indoors?
I really think they're finished with their clunkers. I know people have talked about this as a trap game. I don't think it's a trap game, but I don't think it's an easy game. The Vikings' record is a lie. They have played enormously close games all season long. They just haven't been able to finish.
You know, you look back at the start of the year, they just kept blowing games early. They were up big at halftime, and I believe their first 3 games of the year blew all 3 games, and have really never recovered from that. You know, they made the move on from Donovan McNabb now to Christian Ponder, the rookie out of Florida State, and saw a lot of Joe Webb last week, and he nearly brought him back, had him at the 1-yard line on the precipice of pulling off an amazing comeback against Detroit on the road last week, and a non-call on a face mask denied the Vikings a chance perhaps to pull that game out. But that just tells you what kind of season it's been for Minnesota.
And unfortunately for the Saints, Adrian Peterson returning this week, and he's still elite. He's quite a player.
He is, and I mean, you have to be impressed with the job that the Saints did defensively on Chris Johnson last week. He was getting on a roll. You know, he had been having some big games coming into last week, and the Saints effectively shut him down. They need to have the same kind of effort this week against Peterson, or he can make it a very difficult day for him by himself.
The Vikings made a comeback last week, almost got the Lions with a second quarterback in the game. They've gone through 3 or 4 this year.
They really have, and it's it's one of those things. If Christian Ponder struggles early, are we going to see Joe Webb again? And he brings a totally different dynamic, much as we saw last week when Hasselbeck went out of the game, and all of a sudden you had Jake Locker in the game. It was something that you could clearly see the Saints were not necessarily prepared for, because Locker brought a different set of intangibles to the table.
From the Saints' perspective, Mark Ingram will still be out, it appears, but Chris Ivory ran well last week, and they have a similar type runner in Ivory to replace Ingram.
And it's a good situation the Saints have right now. You don't have to rush Ingram back in these types of situations. And if you had just 3 backs, you might be more pressed to try to get him in there and try to split the carries up. But you don't have a need to do that right now with 4 very good running backs.
Drew Brees breaking all kinds of records. Offense number 1 in the league. Obviously, you've got some incredibly impressive things that the Saints are posting on a numbers perspective, but the most impressive thing, Lenny, to me, is 4 straight games without a turnover.
Yeah, we mentioned it last week. Drew Brees has gone 4 straight games without a pick. That was the last turnover. This team has fumbled the ball a grand total of 3 times the entire year. With 3 games left in the year, the NFL record for fumbles in a season, fewest fumbles in a season, is 7. And they've got 3 in 13 games. That's a remarkable number. You hope.
Where's the wood?
Yeah, wood's right here. Let's hope it stays that way.
All right, Saints and the Vikings. I've got the Saints winning the game. I think they'll win by 7. I think it will be a tough game, a competitive game, but I think they'll win the game.
I'll make it a 2-score game. Okay. I think they'll have a chance to perhaps draw away late. The Vikings are the type of team that, again, will, don't let the record fool you. I mean, they may end up picking 2nd or 3rd in the draft come April, but they are the type of team that will hang around, but in the end, the Saints will get a little separation.
And I said last week, if the Saints beat Tennessee, they went out. I still feel that way.
I agree. I don't see anything that's changed my mind. An awfully impressive performance by Atlanta last night against a Jacksonville team that's not that good. They'll have a long rest coming in here, but that's something to talk about next week.
Follow our live chat on the Saints game against the Minnesota Vikings on Sunday at SportsNOLA.com. And, of course, our coverage following the game with our game story and opinion pieces as well. And don't forget, SportsNOLA TV, Monday night, 6 p.m. on WHNO Television, Channel 20 with Brian Alley Walsh, Torrance Small, our special guest, Rich Maudie, and yours truly. That's Monday night, 6 p.m. on WHNO Channel 20. Lenny, as always, a pleasure. Have a great weekend.
Same to you, Ken.
And I'm Ken Trahan for SportsNOLA.com.